Good morning, my little historians, and today we're going to be talking about Period 3, Key Concept 5.4. So, this key concept is all about um, just changes in society and migration to different parts of the world. We see like the push and pull factors, um, like that one worksheet we did, but let's get into it. First one, it says migration in many cases was influenced by changes in demographics of both industrialized and unindustrialized societies that presented challenges in existing patterns of living. And it talks about the new modes of transportation and that allowing for internal and external migration. And the big pattern in this key concept is rural to urban cities. People just going from the farmlands to the cities in search of jobs because of industrialization and the factory jobs and for wages instead of subsistence farming. There we go. So next it talks about they chose to freely relocate in search of work. So rather than being forced to relocate, they are doing it by their own will in search of jobs, and that's the whole big picture, really. So, just like the push and pull factors worksheet we did, I actually have it here. Um, uh, it shows a lot of minuses or push factors away from uh, this whole continent here, Europe and China, and more pluses towards the Americas. So, a big thing in this time period was uh, the cash crops and like plantation farms on America, and we'll get to more of that later. But that was like what really boomed our economy. We had a lot of exports to other countries, like um, tobacco farms and cotton farms and all of that. So next it says the new global capitalist economy continued to rely on coerced and semi-coerced labor migration, so including enslavement. So a good example of this is the transatlantic slave trade from West Africa into the Americas. Just like I talked about, they were mostly used on the plantation farms. Uh, Next we have the or migrants tended to be male, leaving women to take on new roles in the society. So the women in these societies, they're starting to not tend for the children. They didn't do their traditional roles that they used to. They were going to look for wage jobs or wage work, and they're looking to break the cycle of patriarchy. And this is really the start of feminism, or not this key concept, but this whole period is basically all about isms. So feminism, nationalism, all of this is just a big, big part of period 3 with the Enlightenment ideas, John Locke, Thomas Paine, common sense, just all of these big, big things to make people think differently and want to take over existing role in their countries. But back to key concept 5.4. Migrants created ethnic enclaves. So a good example of this everyone's heard of Chinatown. So this is kind of a basic example, but it's obviously people from China wanting to immerse their own culture into the American culture and making those little groups like Chinatown. And there's more, I know, but next it says receiving societies did not always embrace immigrants, and there is the racial prejudice in that. So a good example of this is the scientific racism, specifically on the Europeans for the African population after they imperialized Africa, the scramble for Africa. So things like the Berlin Conference, where the European states drew up the border lines on Africa, disregarding all the tribal lines that they had. And this really caused a lot of internal conflict between African tribes and population. That just goes to show how much better or how higher the Europeans think of themselves. And things like phrenology or the study of the skull, they're like, oh, their skulls are smaller than ours. That means their brains are smaller, and that means we're smarter, which honestly doesn't really make sense at all. But just stupid things like that, making them believe that they're better and that they have a right to rule over other people. So that was Key Concept 5.4. I hope you learned something, and